Welcome back to Zodiac Talks Tarot, where we treat astrology like a living language, not a party trick, not a fortune cookie, and definitely not the thing your cousin quotes after 2 glasses of wine. And today we're diving into Aries for the week of October 6th to 12th, 2025. The headline is simple and a little mischievous. This slow start you're feeling is not a punishment, it's the beginning of everything. And if you hang with me, I'll show you why the universe sometimes presses buffering right before it streams your next chapter in high definition. Think of this week as a careful ignition rather than a stall, more like a train rolling out of the station than a car coughing on the shoulder, because once that engine warms up, momentum becomes your best friend, and anyone standing on the tracks will suddenly discover they had other plans. Aries energy loves velocity, but the cards ask for something rarer: balance, calibration, a dose of the Libra way, which might sound like being told to whisper at a rock concert, yet the lesson is elegant in its simplicity, a reminder that power without poise wastes itself, whereas power with poise becomes art. So yes, the wind is shifting, and yes, to be fair, insists you weigh options and consider the long game, and before your inner warrior rolls their eyes. Let me say this as someone who has spent a lifetime studying star cycles, social patterns, psychology, and the perennial wisdom of Buddhist teachers: balance isn't the enemy of boldness, it is the amplifier of it. The archer who breathes before releasing the arrow does not weaken the shot, they perfect it. Your opposite sign, Libra, holds the medicine you need right now, and no, you don't have to trade your boots for ballet slippers. You simply align your strides so the thing you're charging at actually deserves your charge. Underneath all this is a subtler transformation. Neptune's shuttling between Aries and Pisces has a way of loosening old beliefs like wallpaper in a humid room, and the Hierophant in your spread points to the doctrine you absorbed before you even knew there were electives. The "I'm not that kind of person" or "people like me don't do that" stories that keep you politely parked in the lobby of your own potential. The Wheel of Fortune and the Chariot, those great engines of motion, sit nearby as if to say, we can turn, we can move, but you steer. And here the psychological work matters. Catch the inner voice that declares an idea impossible. The second it excites you, study it like a scientist. And then humor me, ask whether that voice is wisdom or just an echo from a room you no longer live in. The 7 of Cups shows your imagination in full bloom: visions, options, fantasies, and the Knight of Swords can be your haste running up to a dream and declaring it unworkable before you've tested its bones, which is why this week invites you to hold an idea long enough to let it breathe. Give it a sketch, a phone call, a page in your notebook, a tiny action that pulls it from mist into matter, because Buddhist practice would say the mind loves to rehearse reality until it feels finished, and your job is to interrupt that loop with one small earthly step. Emotionally, the 5 of Cups whispers about disappointments you still scan like airport departures, waiting for a gate change that never comes. But if you pivot even a little, those 2 upright cups behind you, the ones that represent living options, new allies, real connection, come into view, and that bridge to the future isn't metaphor, it's a plan. Humor helps here. Imagine you insisting on drinking from a cracked cup because we already poured it, and then imagine setting it down and discovering someone quietly set out cold water and fresh lemons while you were busy proving your point. Vulnerability is part of the upgrade. To being broken open isn't a tragic headline but a practical doorway to authenticity. And like the Queen of Cups, you lead best when you allow your heart to have a vote in the room. In practice, that may look like telling the truth about what you want. When Neptune decides to turn back toward Pisces, it's a bit like watching the tide roll out after it's rushed in too far, leaving behind an exposed shoreline that suddenly shows what has always been there but rarely noticed. Neptune is the planet of dreams, illusions, and shifting perceptions, and its retrograde phase doesn't necessarily announce itself with fireworks or earthquakes. Instead, it quietly pries at the corners of your beliefs, tugging at the wallpaper of your inner world until you notice the patterns you've lived with since childhood. The Hierophant steps forward here as a mirror of tradition, of inherited values, of those old cultural scripts and family mantras you accepted long before you knew you had a choice. Maybe you were told you were too impulsive to be reliable, too impractical to handle big responsibilities, not smart enough to take on ambitious goals. And like many of us, maybe you repeated those lines to yourself without ever stopping to ask the simplest, most liberating question: who wrote this script, and do I still believe it? Neptune's retrograde is your invitation to sit with that question. It isn't about tearing your whole life apart, it's about recognizing that sometimes the biggest chain around your ankle is only a rope you've forgotten how to untie. This is where the Wheel of Fortune and the Chariot offer their counsel. Both cards speak of movement, but not of aimless wandering. The wheel turns, but it demands your hand on the lever. The Chariot drives forward, but only if you choose the direction. They whisper that change is possible, but only if you stop worshipping at the altar of your own limitations. Buddhist teaching reminds us that clinging is suffering, and nothing grips us more stubbornly than our own outdated identities. The mind says, "I've always been this way," and suffering responds, "Then you'll always feel stuck." Yet here is the hidden joke of human psychology: you are not a marble statue. You are a living story. And stories, unlike stone, can be revised. Aries, this is your week to say, "No, that was the old draft. I'm rewriting the story." You do not have to believe every thought that crosses your mind just because it has been hanging around for decades. Now, let's shift to the Knight of Swords galloping into the scene. He charges with restless energy, sees the Seven of Cups shimmering with possibilities: love, adventure, ambition, fantasies, and in true Aries style, he either lunges too quickly or bolts away in panic. This is a classic pattern, the speed of desire meeting the weight of doubt. The Knight can embody your instinct to run straight at the dream, only to stop short and declare, "It's impossible." The real lesson is that some ideas need more seasoning. They don't need to be abandoned, but they do need time to breathe. That impossibility you feel is often just the old Hierophant talking, the dusty tradition whispering, "That's not for people like you." It's not divine law, it's conditioning. Instead of dismissing your ideas, play with them. Sketch them out. Talk them through with someone you trust. Let them simmer like a stew that tastes better after a night on the stove. Genius has less to do with having a flawless plan on paper and more to do with having the fire to chase what others won't touch. And Aries, if anyone was born to chase, it's you. I once knew a man who told me, if I waited until I felt ready, I'd still be waiting. He wasn't brilliant in the conventional sense, his resume wouldn't have impressed a hiring manager, and his test scores were nothing to brag about, but he built a thriving company because he dared to act when everyone else hesitated. He wasn't smarter, he was braver. And bravery, in practice, often just means moving forward before your doubts get a chance to build a case. For Aries, the trap is assuming you need one more certificate, one more degree, one more year of training before you're allowed to begin. That's an illusion Neptune loves to play with, but it's a mirage. You already know enough. You have already lived enough. You are not underqualified for your own destiny. The Wheel of Fortune doesn't demand a resume, it demands a push. The Buddhist masters would tell you the same in different words, that waiting until the conditions are perfect is the surest way to never begin. The lotus doesn't bloom because the mud was flawless, it blooms because it accepted the mud as part of the process. Aries, you don't need clarity to start, you need momentum. The Chariot doesn't wait until the road is smooth. It rides out over the bumps, blasting through obstacles with a kind of stubborn grace. Yes, your dream may feel raw and untested, but that's not a flaw, it's a stage. And if it feels impossible right now, that's often proof you're standing at the threshold of something worth attempting. So as Neptune tugs you back into the waters of Pisces, as the Hierophant questions the hand-me-downs of your identity, and as the Knight of Swords threatens to bolt before you've even set the table, remember this: the most dangerous belief is not "I can't but I'll start later." Later is the graveyard of dreams. This week, your task is to notice the old scripts, thank them for their service, and let them retire. Then, take one small step toward the fantasy that scares you most. Make the call, write the page, test the idea. It won't be perfect, and it doesn't need to be. Perfection isn't the requirement here, participation is. The universe isn't grading your paper, it's waiting to see if you're willing to pick up the pen. And the joke, the relief, the liberation, is that once you do, you'll realize you already had everything you needed to begin. When we look at the Five of Cups, we're forced to confront a kind of emotional undertow that pulls us backward if we let it. This card, often misunderstood as one of pure grief, is less about tragedy and more about perspective. Picture the scene: 3 cups tipped over, their contents staining the ground like spilled wine after a party that ended too late, and 2 cups standing upright, brimming with potential. Yet the figure on the card can't stop staring at the mess. And that, Aries, is you at times, dwelling on the losses, the disappointments, the almosts that sting your pride. Maybe a project you believed in collapsed under its own weight. Maybe a relationship that once looked like the perfect script turned into a drama with too many plot holes. Or maybe life simply refused to unfold in that clean, fiery arc you imagined, where every scene had you cast as the triumphant lead. Instead, life tossed in some improv, a few delays, and a subplot you didn't sign up for. Still, the truth remains: while you're busy staring at the spilled cups, those 2 upright ones are practically waving at you, saying, "Hey, over here, there's still something good." They're not consolation prizes. They're not pity replacements. They're opportunities, relationships, and connections aligned with who you are becoming. And if you'd only lift your gaze, you'd notice the bridge beyond them leading to a castle. Not a metaphorical shack, not a tent pitched on disappointment, but a castle. The future, Aries, is not cancelled just because Act 2 didn't go your way. And here's the humorous twist: because Aries energy has a flair for stubbornness that borders on comedy. Sometimes you hold on to the disappointment just to prove a point. "No, I will drink from this broken cup if it kills me. I said this was my cup, and by God, I'll finish it." But life, ever gentle and slightly exasperated, is whispering back, "Sweetheart, put it down. There's champagne waiting in the next room, and you're over here sipping vinegar." This is where self-awareness becomes your saving grace. Every zodiac sign has its Achilles heel. For Aries, it's that fiery refusal to admit something's over. But the secret is this: letting go doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've freed your hands for something better. Now, let's talk about vulnerability, because the cards broken open and "it is what it is" arrive with lessons most of us don't like to hear. They remind me of something a Buddhist monk once said: "The cracked pot carries the most water." The imperfections, the cracks, the fractures, they're not flaws to be hidden but channels through which your humanity flows. Aries, following your heart may make you feel exposed. It may mean criticism from family who doesn't understand why you're chasing a dream that doesn't fit their idea of stability. It may mean being second-guessed by friends who prefer the comfort of the old you, not the evolving you. Vulnerability can feel like standing in front of a crowd without your armor, hoping no one notices the tremble in your hand. But here's the paradox: authenticity is born exactly in that space. What looks like weakness to the outside world is the birthplace of courage. The Queen of Cups, seated in her calm power, nudges you to listen less to the critics and more to the quiet pull of your heart. The Page of Cups, playful and innocent, shows up with possibilities just beyond your comfort zone: new love, new inspiration, new creative sparks that don't ask for perfection, only curiosity. What you may long for now is not the grand romance that burns too hot to last, nor the battlefield of love where every word is a skirmish. What you crave is something almost radical for Aries: simplicity. A connection that is kind, easy, undramatic. Think less Romeo and Juliet, more Netflix and pizza. Imagine not having to armor up for every conversation, not measuring every gesture against a fantasy. Just the relief of companionship that feels like exhaling. And don't underestimate it, sometimes the simplest love heals wounds the loudest dramas could never touch. But of course, Aries, you're not built to sit still for long. And so the Chariot appears, reminding you that progress is not always a thunderclap of glory. Sometimes it's paperwork. Sometimes it's the dull task you've been avoiding because you'd rather fight dragons than fill out forms. But here's the thing, victories are often disguised as those very tasks. File the application. Send the email. Finish the thing you've been circling around. Because the Chariot knows momentum is magic. The hardest part is getting started. After that, the energy builds, and soon you're not pushing the train, it's carrying you. The metaphor of the train fits you perfectly. At the station, it looks impossibly heavy, wheels grinding slowly as if it will never move. You start to doubt, pacing the platform, muttering under your breath about wasted time. But then it gathers speed, and once it does, it's unstoppable. That's your life right now. You're in the ignition stage. The motion may feel slow, almost insulting to your Aries impatience, but give it time. Once you commit, the momentum will carry you further than your doubts ever could. And here is where humor sneaks in again, because let's be honest, Aries, you're the type who slams your fist on the microwave when 2 minutes feels like too long. You glare at the screen as if daring it to defy you. The universe chuckles at this impatience, then hands you popcorn and says, relax. The wait is part of the process. The popcorn is worth it. And maybe that's the lesson this week: patience doesn't mean inaction. It means trusting that the slow build is not a punishment but a preparation. You're not stalled, you're regathering force. So if we put all of this together, the message becomes clear. Stop drinking from the broken cup of old disappointments. Notice the upright ones that still hold promise. Recognize that your cracks are not liabilities but proof you've lived, loved, and learned. Seek the kind of love and connection that doesn't drain you but restores you. Handle the small, boring tasks because they are the first bricks of momentum. And above all, trust that this slow beginning is the start of something unstoppable. Aries, the universe is not mocking you with delay, it's tuning the strings before the performance. And when the music begins, you'll realize the waiting wasn't wasted at all. Love, when it comes into focus for Aries this season, is not about the dramatic gestures you see in movies or the adrenaline-pumping highs and lows that leave you dizzy. The lovers appear not only as a symbol of romance but also as a reminder that love is fundamentally about choice: what you choose to align yourself with, what kind of energy you allow into your orbit, and how you decide to participate in connection. If love steps into your life now, it won't arrive with fireworks meant to dazzle your neighbors, nor will it throw you onto a roller coaster of chaos disguised as passion. Instead, it will take the form of alignment, of someone who brings steadiness to your flame without trying to extinguish it. This is not boring nice, the kind of politeness that feels like tepid tea. This is genuine kindness, the kind that is warm, grounding, and deeply real. Think less soap opera, more Sunday morning coffee. Imagine waking up not to the sound of slammed doors and heated arguments but to the quiet comfort of a shared laugh over scrambled eggs. And honestly, Aries, that's exactly what your fiery heart has been craving, even if you haven't admitted it yet. For the chosen ones among you, the Aries who feel destined to carve a bigger story, who sense that your life has been marked by more than just ordinary struggle, this relationship energy carries an even greater weight. The right person, or the right partnership, will not slow your fire down, they will fuel it. They will become co-pilots rather than passengers, allies rather than obstacles. This could very well be part of your year of triumph 2025, not because you've checked the love box but because you've discovered what it means to share your fire without losing it. Love at this stage in your journey is not about appearances, not about the Instagram highlight reel, but about something more precious: having someone who feels like home, who makes ambition less lonely and victories more meaningful. Messages from your future self arrive through the Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Eight of Pentacles, and together they form a kind of wise counsel. Your future self is not shaking you awake with panic but rather whispering with authority, don't let your ideas die in the graveyard of hesitation. How many dreams are lost not because they were impossible but because someone waited too long to begin? The Hermit calls you out of hiding, reminding you that reflection is necessary but isolation is not a permanent state. The Wheel of Fortune urges you to spin forward, not to remain passive while life tosses you around like clothes in a washing machine. And the Eight of Pentacles, ever the craftsman, insists that mastery is not an accident of fate but the result of steady persistence. It is practice, repetition, showing up again and again even when no one is clapping. Motivational speaker Les Brown once said the richest place on earth is the graveyard, because it is filled with unpursued ideas, unwritten books, songs never sung, and businesses never started. Aries, your fire was not given to you to burn out in that silence. Whatever you are building, even if it feels slow, is not wasted time. You are shaping mastery, brick by brick, step by step. You are not behind, you are exactly at the cusp where excellence is born, and your only enemy is the hesitation that tells you to wait until conditions are perfect. The truth is, conditions are never perfect. They are just waiting for you to start. In the area of inner strength and personal growth, two oracle cards change your tune and self-regulation appear alongside the strength card. The lesson here is subtle but profound. It is not about suppressing your fire but learning how to direct it. Aries energy is known for boldness, for charging ahead, for refusing to sit still, but even the fiercest lion must be tamed, not caged, not silenced, but channeled. Strength is about gentleness toward yourself, speaking to your own reflection as if you are the star player your team cannot win without. Talk to yourself with faith, encouragement, and fire. The words you speak internally will either ignite your courage or smother it, and this week you are asked to change the way you speak to yourself. Replace "I can't" with "I will," replace "maybe someday" with "why not now." The Ace of Wands ignites in this spread, reminding you that inspiration is not a luxury, it is fuel. Aries is a sign that thrives on fire, but fire must be fed. Build playlists of songs that make you feel invincible. Watch movies that stir your heart. Surround yourself with people who lift your energy instead of draining it. Curate your state of mind the way a DJ curates a party, deliberately choosing the rhythm that will keep your spirit moving. When you are in the right state, your Aries fire does not merely flicker, it roars. And from that place of inspiration, almost anything becomes possible. When we turn to finances and career, the message is not dramatic but practical. The purse card simply advises, pay attention to your finances. This is not a warning of doom but a reminder to be grounded. October may feel quiet, as though nothing major is happening, but beneath the surface, energy around money is strong. Seeds planted now, ideas pursued, budgets refined, projects started can pay off down the line. This is not the month to gamble recklessly, nor the time to scatter your energy in a dozen directions. It is the month to build with care, to stabilize your resources, and to prepare the soil for what will inevitably grow. A slow and steady investment of effort will prove more valuable than a quick and flashy risk. And so we arrive at the conclusion of this week's story for Aries. The message is deceptively simple: what feels slow is sacred. The train is leaving the station, even if it's moving inch by inch. The wheel is turning, even if you don't yet feel the wind on your face. The chariot is moving, even if it's rolling over the small obstacles first. Do not mistake a quiet October for a wasted one. This is the chapter where the hero laces their boots, sharpens their sword, and studies the map. The dragon may not appear until later, but without the preparation, the dragon wins. Patience is not passivity, it is preparation. And this preparation is exactly what will make you unstoppable in the weeks to come. So pause and ask yourself, what old beliefs am I ready to burn? What fantasy deserves at least one real-world step this week? What small act today could set the fire for tomorrow? Remember, Aries, this slow start is not a punishment, it is the beginning of everything. Do not confuse the lack of noise with the absence of progress. The soil looks still, but roots are digging deep. The station looks quiet, but the train is gathering steam. And your heart may feel restless, but it is aligning with something greater than restlessness, it is aligning with purpose. So here is my encouragement to you, Aries, enjoy your life. Enjoy even the slow mornings, the quiet afternoons, the small victories that no one else sees. This is not wasted time. This is life ripening, energy building, destiny aligning. You were not made for mediocrity, you were made to blaze, but even the brightest fire begins with a spark and a little patience. And before we close, let me remind you, if this message resonated, if you found wisdom or comfort in these words, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to our channel, Zodiac Talks Tarot, where we dive deep into the stars not as fortune cookies but as guides for the soul. Your support helps keep this space alive, and it means the world to know you're part of this journey. Aries, may you walk into this week with courage, humor, and faith, knowing that this slow beginning is the foundation of your triumph.